Okay, my name is Koen and I'm an active citizen. I live in Antwerp. I assume you know the city. I'm going to explain some of our activities that we do concerning commons. And first of all, let's start with explaining maybe what commons are. There are several definitions, but we use a more classical definition. This is one of our first experiments we did in 2017. We installed a very cheap do-it-yourself rain barrel in public space in Antwerp, really in the old city center. And there we collect rainwater. Rainwater is from everybody. But here we collect it in a barrel and everybody in the neighborhood can use the rainwater from this rain barrel. So this rain barrel, it is not owned by a private person. It's not owned by our city government. It's owned by the community. And the citizens are the users. They share the rainwater, but they have to make agreements about the use of the water because there's only 50 liters in the barrel. So if you use it a lot, the rain barrel gets empty very fast. So these are the three ingredients of commons. You have a collective of people who share a resource and they make agreements about the use of the shared resource. Maybe some other definitions. It's a little bit of theory, but not too much. So the commons are the resource. Commoners are the people who share a resource and who maintain and reproduce a resource. Commoning is the process. It's a verb. It's really an active process. Every user of the common is actively involved. There's also the ideology, commonism. It's a new term invented by a professor in Antwerp, but that's a new ideology globally of people who believe in togetherness. I think we lost a little bit the idea that together we can also share resources. It's not only private companies or public partners who can organize things, also communities can organize things. So commonism is the ideology. And we also often speak about commons transition. We have a commons transition plan in Flanders, also in Antwerp. That's about the systemic collective change towards more togetherness. Also, the process of the commons transition is also more collectively than most of the change processes that we know, for instance, in private companies. What we work on, this is a picture taken last week in our community garden in my own neighborhood. This is a public space in Antwerp, but it's not public anymore. Now it's a common. With a few neighbors, we organize this space. We grow vegetables there, but we also like to share all those vegetables with the other neighborhoods. And every year we organize a party for our neighbors, and yeah, lots of neighbors come together, and that's how we see the future. People sharing all food, also glasses, drinks, coming together, all kinds of ages, ethnic groups. So for us, this is a positive movement. There are 60 of those collective gardens in Antwerp nowadays, and every year they're coming a lot more. But commonism, we also are a bit critical. We're not only positivists. We're first of all critical also about ourselves. Our impact in the city is still very small. We're growing, but we would like to have more impact on urban inequality and poverty that is also growing in Antwerp, like in other cities. And our impact on inequality and poverty is still marginal. So we're critical also about our own movement. But we're also critical about all forms of suppression, imperialism, colonialism, exclusion, by different actors, by governments, different movements, and also about the market. We're also critical about urban planning process. I was facilitating participatory processes for 15 years, and after 15 years I really had to quit. We only saw all the time the same people participating, and yeah, we left the workshop rooms and we went to the public spaces where all the people were involved. But that's another story. Now let's talk about the impact of COVID on the social structures in Antwerp, but probably it's the same in other cities around the world. We became aware of our local vulnerability, also on our global dependence, but also on the powerlessness of our governments and also the powerlessness of our politicians. And this is a figure of the price of steel that is exploding, like other resources, basic resources like energy. The prices are getting enormously high very fast, and the predictions are not very good. And it seems like nobody has less impact on these evolutions. But on the other hand, the last 10 years, we saw not only in Antwerp, but also on countrysides, for instance, we saw the rise of citizens collectives, commons initiatives on different themes, on climate adaptation, also on care, food, energy. We saw a lot of citizens who started to produce several kinds of products and services. Here are some pictures of our interventions the last years. So we also collect data more on the left side for you, but we collect data because as citizens we also want to become more smart, and we use those data also for new interventions. We started up an oven that we share in our neighborhood to bake bread together. I live in a very ethnical, multicultural neighborhood, and it's everybody makes bread or used to make bread before, and now we're baking bread together. Maybe it's a little bit soft, but it's very interesting. We're also supporting neighborhoods in creating their own newspapers. This is a picture of a few weeks ago. We think it's also important to reorganize newspapers and other media. We also organized last year, everybody could order a rain barrel. After our first experiments last year, we invited everybody to buy their own rain barrel. So now in Antwerp there are rain barrels everywhere in the streets. Maybe that's interesting. It was not allowed by the city council, but yeah, we said, yeah, we're gonna install those anyhow. So sometimes we have some discussions also with our local government. You also see beekeepers that we also organize collectively, because the amount of food for bees in cities is scarce. So we also think that beekeeping should be organized collectively. And here on the right side, that's one of the garden streets. We have several garden streets in Antwerp. And also, you can also frame a street as a common. You use your street, you live in your street. You can also maintain your own street. And we have some really interesting green streets in Antwerp where the citizens are maintaining their streets, because greener streets, of course, need more maintenance. And who will organize that? Is it private company? Is it the public sector or the citizens? We find there are a lot of citizens in Antwerp who like to start those kind of garden streets. Another trend that we see in Belgium, not only in Flanders or in Antwerp, but in Belgium and all around Europe, is the rise of energy co-ops. I think there are 15 energy companies in Belgium right now. I'm not quite sure, but this is a picture of 2 years ago. But there are a lot of new energy co-ops rising. The first was EcoPower in Flanders, but nowadays, every month I think there's a new energy cooperation. What we also see a trend is that different citizens collectives are working together and forming what we call peer-to-peer networks. And a good example are the energy companies that are, they federated in Rescoop Vlaanderen. You also have Rescoop Wallonia, but you also have Rescoop Belgium, so they federated on the Belgian scale, but they also federated on the European scale. So they're all collaborating and they have quite some impact on European policy on energy. So that's interesting how those networks start bottom up, organize themselves, and in different layers, scales, levels. On the left hand, you see a Commons Assembly. We started a food council from the bottom up in 2019. It was an open call. We didn't know that there were so many people in Antwerp that were starting to produce their own food. And that was before COVID. During COVID, it really exploded. And it was interesting. We also invited the city council. And yeah, thanks to COVID, they realized that they had to build up a food strategy for our urban region. So last year, they decided to also start up a food policy together with all those actors and stakeholders. What we are working on and we hope to realize that the next 10 years, I'm not sure if it will work out, but we're trying to work on, we think we need more partner cities where the city really looks at citizens collectives as partners, not as angry or annoying people. But I think we need to partner with our local governments. In Flanders, we see a lot of participatory experiments, but real partnerships between citizens and local governments, it's still a lot of work, I think. We also need new regulation because when you're commoning, you're always working illegally. I'm not a criminal. I like to create common spaces, but there's no legal basis in Flanders, not locally and not on the Flemish level. And we think we need new regulation for the care and regeneration of not only urban commons, but generally all sorts of commons. And of course, we also need a new economy, and we think we need a new shift. You have 4 kinds of goods. I'm not going to really explain this completely scheme. I think most of you know it, but we see a trend of more privatization. But we think we need to shift it, and we need more public goods and common resources because they are not excludable. Everybody has access to those goods, and as goods become more scarce, we think it's important to make them non-excludable. So a lot of sharing economy, for example, are club goods. You only have access when when you buy an application or something. But we think we need more public goods. A lot of our public transport is getting more private, and we think we need to change that. And we hope we started up in Antwerp, but last year we got funded by the Flemish government, so we're growing a little bit, and I'm very glad to come here to Namur, and I hope you will all start as active citizens your own commons labs, and let's experiment, and that's my call to action. We really need to experiment, we really need to become active all as citizens, I think. Okay, thank you.